The violations are a little over 51,000 per violation. And if you're a big brand and you pay a third party and they go out and get you 1,000 of those or 2,000 of those, that's a lot.
You're listening to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast brought to you by Affyversemedia.com, the chapter and verse of everything you need to know about running a successful affiliate program for your business. Now, here's your award-winning affiliate and performance marketing host, an industry veteran, your affiliate marketing guide, and the founder of Affyverse, Leanne Johnston.
Hi there, Affiliate Marketing Podcast listeners. It's Leanne here. I'm interrupting our regular schedule to bring you an extra special podcast episode. We're hitting pause on our usual transmission to dive into some major developments that are sending shockwaves through the affiliate marketing world. The FTC is cracking down hard on affiliates and content creators in the US, and folks, this is a big deal. I've brought in Gayla Huber from IntegraShield to help us unpack what's happening. The FTC is tightening its grip on how we present information about products and services to consumers, and their new guidance could have a massive impact on the gig economy that props up our entire industry. We're not just talking minor tweaks here. This could fundamentally change how affiliate programs operate with content creators, at least in the US for now. But trust me, what happens stateside often ripples out globally as well. Now, I know regulations might not sound like the most thrilling topic, but stick with me here. These changes could seriously impact how we all do business, from solo affiliates to really big brands. Gayla is going to break down what's happening, why it matters, and what you need to know to stay ahead of the curve. We'll cover everything from AI disclosures to review guidelines and some of the stuff that might surprise you. So grab a notepad along with your coffee, because we want you to jot down some info as we go through this episode. And let's figure out how to navigate these choppy waters together. Gayla, welcome to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast. And to kick things off, could you give us a bit of a background about what you've seen in the affiliate marketing industry over the past few years, and a little bit about who you are and what IntegraShield does?
Sure. So just high level, because we'll probably get into it, what I see happening, at least over in the US, is that regulators are really targeting the act of marketing, not as much as they used to target just being truthful in marketing.
Yeah.
And so now they're really targeting the tools we're using, how we do it, who you work with. We'll talk more about it, especially when we get into the FCC stuff. But I'm hearing such sad stories of people who have been in the industry 20 plus years, and they may shut their doors next year. So it's a little bit rough out there right now. I do think that we can fight for some change, just simply because I don't think that a lot of folks in DC, in the state level, are very aware of the ripple effect. I'm Gayla Huber. I am the president of IntegraShield, and we've been around since 2012. We do compliance monitoring, and we're very niche in that field, where we do compliance monitoring for content on the internet. So people will use us for everything from trademark infringement all the way to identifying what content is driving their traffic.
And the reason why we're talking today and having a little bit of a break in the schedule is because some of the recent news that's come out from the FTC over in the US, which doesn't impact everybody here in Europe just yet, but we'll talk a little bit about why it's important to know about this stuff and actually follow it. And Gayla is one of the most knowledgeable people I know about compliance and understands what the FTC guidance is all about. And so I thought it was important to bring her onto the podcast this week, because we are looking at the gig economy. Affiliates, they're entrepreneurs. You know, some people are doing it as a side hustle. It's a gig that they're getting off the ground. And what you've just said now at the start of this podcast is super, super important for affiliate managers to be aware of, because there might be a fallout with some of the recent FTC guidances that have been issued. And that's why Gayla and I wanted to jump on this podcast today and just really flesh it out and talk about it. So let's talk a little bit about what these massive changes are that have happened recently. And it's within the last month or so that the guidance has been coming out fast and furious from the FTC. So let's take a step back and tell people what's actually been released, why it's impactful, and what that actually means for affiliates that are digital marketers and running side hustle businesses.
Okay, so everyone watching probably knows that last year they updated their endorsement guidelines, and that initially caused a stir. But at the end of the day, endorsement guidelines are really just, if you're getting paid to say it, let people know you're getting paid to say it, be honest. And so that one's not too tricky. I do believe that the most recent testimonial/review guidelines, that was super confusing. And they did tell us that you're on PMA as well. And we had a webinar with the FTC this week. And Michael, who works over at the FTC, did explain to us that they're going to put out a helpful guide for folks just because there's so many moving parts. And if you were to watch that, you would see his face when we would ask a question. He had to think about it. He had to think if someone would be in trouble for something because it's really not clear cut and it's really hard to identify, I think, for the average person, like a lot of our affiliates, what we're doing and it falls under that guideline because a lot of sort of the things that we would normally think of tend to fall under other FTC rules, so the FTC Act or the endorsement guidelines that they put out. But the FTC's testimonial review, the big takeaways that I took from that is that one, it doesn't matter if you're a small business or a big business, you will probably get caught. And that's because we did identify how they do their monitoring and enforcement. And that is through insiders ratting people out, or if they work at the company, that is competitors tattling on people, that is watchdogs like Tina.org and folks like that, finding things and sending that into the FTC. And a lot of the examples that he pulled up on his PowerPoint, those are small businesses. So definitely if you're a small business, don't think that you're immune to this. But for the rule, I took away that there is a couple of things. If you are an insider, so if your immediate family, you work at the company, you must disclose that. And then obviously, if you're getting paid, it has to be a truthful testimonial and you have to disclose that. So I had never thought about it before, but if I'm selling a consumer product and I'm the brand, I do have access to all that data. And one of the tips that he gave was if you're using a third party, they could be incentivized to break the rules to get you more good testimonials, right? Yeah. And so if at any point you see a quick bump up in positive reviews or a quick increase in volume, that's an indicator they look at too. So definitely, I think monitoring isn't going to be as hard as we think, just because you just have to look for some little things to see if anyone's doing it. Now, if you're the one doing it, you already know you're doing it. But if you're paying someone, you can look for some indicators to see if they've done it. But the violations are a little over 51,000 per violation.
Wow.
And if you're a big brand, you pay a third party and they go out and get you 1,000 of those or 2,000 of those or 10,000 of those. That's a lot.
It's not just reviews either. There's a lot of guidance around, because programs now have multiple different types of publishers in them. So you've got your SEO publishers, you've got your paid ads publishers, you've got influencer creators that are using social media platforms. So monitoring all of this is going to become a little bit difficult because it's the marketplace that you're advertising in using third-party referral partners is fractured. But also the liability is still very much on your shoulders. And this is the point that I actually wanted to bring you on to talk about is you can no longer look away because the guidance that the FTC is issuing is becoming more and more hyper-specific about what you can and can't do. And a lot of affiliate program terms don't even have these types of terms in. So a lot of the clients that I see, they don't have terms in that talk to their affiliates about disclosure and what that content should look like, what exact copy they need to be putting onto their ads on TikTok and Facebook and Reels and all of the things that they're using, or even on their websites. And it seems like there was a secondary kind of wave of guidance that came out from the FTC as well. So there was you have to disclose and be honest about the fact that if you're promoting a product, you're actually getting paid for it. The second thing that came out was you need to actually disclose with clear content. And there was some guidance on that as well. But now recently, in the last 2 weeks, there was an additional set of guidelines that came out in relation to AI. So talk to us a little bit about what that means and how that is all impacting affiliate marketing, which leads us back to that initial comment that you started this podcast off with, which is that you're hearing some sad stories that some businesses are actually going to shut up shop next year. So I want people to really realize the impact of this, because we hear it and we see it and we understand it, but we don't know what the knock-on effect is. And that's what kind of you and I were talking about.
Yeah, the AI piece of it. So there's a lot going on with it. AI in the US side on the regulatory piece is huge. There's the FCC has decided that they want to they're a little jealous, I think, over here in the US of GDPR and how you guys got that first. So I think everybody over here has decided, oh, we're going to set the world standard for AI. Everyone's getting in on it. The really scary thing about AI, and we are drafting some comments over here to submit because it can get out of control pretty easy on the regulatory side, especially when they don't really understand it all. But at the end of the day, they're wanting people to disclose when they're using AI. That piece in and of itself is fine. I have gotten into where like I'll be vetted for a bank or something like that. And if I use AI, they want me to open my black box. That's essentially opening up trade secrets, right? No one ever before asked me to show my code on how I scrape or anything like that. So that piece I think is going to be really difficult for businesses because it'll put everything out into the open. But essentially so recently they went after some different businesses. A couple of the businesses that they went after were folks who were using AI to put out like fake testimonials, different things like that. Yeah. But then there are a couple companies in there that sell the AI tools that will help you do fake testimonials and things like that. The rules aren't even there. And they're still going after people just because they are considering, just like under like our TCPA law, they didn't have to do anything to make AI generated calls be part of robodialing or robotexting. So all the other regulators are falling in the same kind of thought process where the use of AI still like just automatically is going to be included in these things. Mm-hmm. And so I would say for folks, they really need to take a look at the tools they're using. I'm talking in a few weeks at a direct selling conference, and the panelists, we've been discussing privacy, AI, and consent, which sounds like an odd panel, but at the end of the day, AI creates a lot of privacy issues. And then all the new rules that are coming out with AI, and companies really have to be careful when they're using AI and really affiliates, because again, this is the gig economy. We have folks building content that are not educated on the regulation. Yeah. And so you really need to understand who's doing your marketing and who's pushing traffic to you, because they may not realize that these great tools that make building content so much faster could essentially get you in trouble. And that oftentimes too is because if you're going fast and you're doing a lot of volume, kind of like the stories we've heard where attorneys will use AI to help them with things and it ends up being wrong. If you're moving too fast and you're doing things and you're not keeping up and you're not paying attention to what your AI is producing, then you could end up with an issue. So there's a lot, I think, that's going to be coming down with AI. But at the end of the day, it's all about making sure like you disclose that you used it. Consumers want to know if they're dealing with AI. Make sure that your AI is being watched, right? Monitor your AI. Make sure it's not willy-nilly putting out content that it shouldn't be putting out. But yeah, I would, if I'm a business and I market to consumers, this great last year of cheaper, faster, better content, right? You're going to have to be careful and make sure that your tools are set up to where if you do use it, it discloses to the consumer that you did.
And that also bears a responsibility for all affiliate managers listening to this, because you need to be making sure that those terms are carried forward into your program and that your affiliates are educated on what they can and can't do using AI wherever your brand is concerned. And it seems like I know it's guidance at the moment, and you and I discussed this a lot, because a lot of what actually happens as standard regulatory practices in other regions filter through here into Europe as well. And what I'm interested to see or hear from your perspective is how quickly do you think some of these guidance policies are actually going to be pushed forward into like regulatory law? And then how long is the lag time between when it happens in the US that it moves over to Europe? Is it 6 months, a year? Like, should we be planning for that now? Should we just be watching and listening and observing? What's the kind of tactical steps that you think people should be doing right now in their own programs to, one, protect, B, get ahead of all of these changes and start educating people early so that it's not a big, massive deal when it has to come into force? And C, like self-educate. What are the places that they should be looking at? Obviously the FTC website, but are there other like cases or things that are happening that you should watch out for or governing bodies that you should be looking at?
It's funny how you see it. I used to think that you guys were ahead of us on regulations, and I think it's just back and forth. And again, regulators beating each other to the punch. But we have an election coming up, so it gets really hard to predict because depending on the outcome of the election is how heavily businesses will have regulations. And that's not to say one way or the other is good. Like, I'm not making a political stance here. That is just reality. The election will have a lot to do with it. On current regulations, right, that could get rolled back, and then also upcoming regulations. But let's say if all you care about in the world is regulations and Kamala wins, I would predict that the FCC's AI rule will come out probably next year. The FTC will probably have theirs out just as quick. So the FTC tends to make just additional regulatory updates where anything you do with AI will still fall under like the FTC Act, endorsement guidelines, all of that. It'll just be a rule that you have to disclose the use of. But the FCC, theirs is definitely a little bit different. So that's why in our world, there's a little bit more, we need more comments over the FCC side, just because they're very much trying to control how we connect with consumers. That piece is a little bit scarier.
Bringing that round back to some of the people that you've been speaking to who are literally just going to shut up shop and not actually be affiliates next year. Why is that? Is it because it's going to become too difficult for them to manage and be compliant because they're an SME and they don't have access to huge amounts of funds to plug in different tools and platforms? Or is it just because it's become too difficult to be an affiliate altogether? Like, what's the kind of word on the ground over there?
It's a lot of the folks that sit in the middle that are having the most trouble, that sort of bridge that gap between brands and affiliates. And those guys are the ones taking a really big hit. They often come with tools and technology that people need. However, they get put in that bucket and in that path. And then when something goes wrong on the publisher side or the brand gets hit, they're kind of sitting there in the middle, a little bit afraid that they're going to get hit as well or get named in a lawsuit. The unfortunate part with our regulations is some of our regulations allow for private right of action, which really at that point, you're not afraid of the regulator. You're afraid of all the lawsuits. That's what puts people out of business, at least over here in the US. That's what most people are afraid of. And the middle guys don't have control one way or the other oftentimes, but at the end of the day, they are going to be put into that bucket. Also, we have consent rules over here. In January, the one-to-one consent goes into place. And so if you can imagine, if you are at the beginning of the funnel to the end of the funnel to the brand, anybody in the middle now is really high risk because they need that consent to go straight from here to here. That to me is so sad and so scary. We're fighting it. I've spent my whole week this week setting up phone calls with our small business administration, with small businesses that are still not ready. And unfortunately, small businesses are often at the mercy of the large businesses. So the big players in the industry, when they say, we're not going to be ready for one-to-one until December 1st, and it rolls out in January, and you're not allowed to grandfather in old leads, you've lost this whole year. What did you spend your money on this year? You lost all of that. You now can't communicate with that consumer. You didn't have one-to-one. And so there's just a lot of things that I don't think the government realizes. And it's a huge economy, right? Like, this industry is huge. And I really believe this industry drives everything. There's no one from Google down to the smallest player. Like, it drives the economy, marketing. And the hit that we're taking right now is that they're looking at the actual ways we do marketing versus just tell people to be honest and truthful and transparent. That's always been the case. And now we're getting away from that. And they're saying, be honest and transparent, but also we only want you to be able to talk to one brand. Consumers, you can only talk to one brand. I think that's ridiculous.
And that's infringing on your personal rights. If you want to submit your details to multiple brands because you want to check out what their offers are, that should be your consumer right. But I think what's more important and what's a little bit scary for me, and the reason why I wanted to have this discussion, is the fact that, yes, the affiliate industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry with hundreds of thousands of content creators and social media marketers and digital marketers and paid media specialists all working on a performance basis. And if these regulatory guidelines that are coming down the pipe are going to become more and more stringent, there is going to be a bottom falling out of the industry in terms of there's not going to be enough traffic for everybody to actually pay and get company growth. And what are we going to do when that happens and affiliates shut up shop and say, I can't afford to be an affiliate anymore because there's too many rules, there's too much regulation. I'm not able to actually acquire traffic at a decent cost. Where do we spend our money? Are we going to have to refilter all of that money into paid advertising? And how's that going to drive up company costs? I don't think that people actually understand the knock-on effect of what getting rid of the gig economy and becoming far too stringent. And I'm not talking about disclosing, like that's a given, like you should not be lying to consumers anyway. That aside, it's all the other things that are coming down the pipe that seem to be trying to squash the ability to be an affiliate at this point, or a content creator, or whatever the case may be. And whilst the social media platforms are trying their best to actually control and enable this so that people can actually reach audiences and build communities around their own personal brand and then leverage those personal brands. If the regulators don't allow the monetization of that, without being far too stringent and enforcing huge fines that will literally just put people out of business, then where is it all headed? That's the question that I want to pose to people this week, because either we get really strict and start to self-regulate ourselves and enforce the rules that are acceptable and should be done with ethical practices, or the regulators are going to do it for us, and that's going to severely impact the industry from what you're telling me.
Yeah. And I do think I'm not going to make any friends in DC with this comment, but I do think that part of this is targeting our gig economy. Affiliates are not the only thing they're targeting, right? Everything from the Uber drivers to you name it. There are other goals, I think. If they're going to start regulating how we do things, that in and of itself is just to get rid of a lot of the options that people have out there that they've built on their own, which is unfortunate. But the regulations coming down, I do think that at some point, and you and I have been around long enough, we've seen the industry come and go and be wild and not wild, and partnerships, and then all of a sudden just handing out cards at a booth. We've seen everything in between. But the regulations that are coming down, they are scary. I get a little bit afraid that because every regulator is kind of doing something, but I feel like they're all going to pick it up from each other. And then at the end of the day, it's almost going to be, I think, turning the internet back into the yellow pages is what I've been saying to people. Because if I can only market one brand at a time, if I can't market you based on how much you pay me, meaning I can't choose the highest bidder, if I can't do all of those things, then I'm negotiating cheap marketing away.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And I'm a big small business proponent. So in my world, the fact that you want to take away cheap marketing to where we get back into who can be in the top 3 on Google. Like if we get back to just like, that's not going to be a good place for consumers. It's a really bad, because they don't have options.
Yeah. Regulation is going to actually cancel out the requirement of providing consumers with accurate, multiple vetted choices based on product, price, place, position is going to fall out the window. We're going to have to redefine what marketing is, because if the regulation comes down and we get to that stage where you can only really look at the top, 10 on Google or search TikTok shop or whatever the case may be, then you're limiting brands' opportunities or businesses' opportunities to actually reach consumers where they are with information that they should decide is right or wrong for them.
They know what they're doing, and there's like bigger goals than what the regulations are pushing out.
But as a multi-billion-dollar industry, should we not be talking about this?
Oh no, we need to be talking about it a lot. I actually think that we should be taking more action on it. I really feel like a lot of folks out there think that their one voice can't be heard, but I'm proof that's not true, because I'm just an average lady living in Kansas City, Kansas, and I have a very small business. I mean, it took me some trying, but I can now have conversations with regulators and they will listen. And this week, I spent all week putting small businesses in touch with those people because they want to listen to them. If you're a small business and you think these regulations will impact you, reach out to someone. You probably know a law firm that does lobbying. You are welcome to reach out to me. I will put you in touch with someone. But it's the everyday stories of these businesses and what the regulations are doing to them that will move the needle more so than any high-powered lobbyists going and talking to someone. We really need to get more like grassroots efforts in the US and get people involved to get things slowed down or stopped.
Yeah. So tactical stuff, let's talk about what people should do. So first thing is understand your own risk profile, understand what your publishers are doing, educate them within your terms and conditions when you onboard them, but also if you've already onboarded them, have a learning lunch, get communications out to them, email them and tell them what's changing. Get your own team educated on all of this stuff because we're so busy doing the doing of every day. We're not looking at what's happening. And sign up to our newsletter, I'm covering this stuff closely because I understand the impact that it's going to be having. And I want affiliate managers to really understand what could be changing because slowly but surely they might want to diversify their portfolios right now and actually think about the types of affiliates that are safe to invest in and to double down on. And to build those relationships now before the changes come into play. Contact somebody if you need to get a better understanding. Hire a lawyer that understands this and join the PMA, join the APMA, get into places where you can get this information and then really start to double down on your own knowledge set. Because I think if you're going to continue to be an affiliate program manager and you're going to be a custodian of your business's money, you need to be understanding the implications of how these regulations impact the strategies that you put behind the marketing. And you might want to even do some education programs for the content creators that are currently building content and using AI tools to push content and bring customers to you. So think about all of these things. We don't have the answers yet, but what we're doing is talking to you about it so that you can become aware of it and then think about how that impacts your business. But now looking ahead, do you anticipate stricter controls coming in if this is the start of it? What's the balancing act between innovation and compliance? Because we still want our businesses to grow. What do you think the future trends will look like if some of these things start to come into force and we have to think about, can we still work with affiliates? Because that might be it in 5 years' time.
I really think that this is the most creative industry. Marketing people are not just creative in marketing, but we have creative technicians. We have really smart people that figure out how to make things work, even with regulations. So I don't think it's going to go away, but I do think it could get to a point where it's just really difficult for people to get into the industry, or it's difficult for people that, even some of the big guys, however they have their processes set up, some of them could have some trouble. And there's obviously a much bigger target. I would say if there are people listening right now technically some things that you should be doing, I would say protect yourself is one of the biggest things. Make sure that if you do have agreements, if you're using agreements with anyone, that all of this is in there. And get rid of your liability if you end up with somebody going rogue. So update your contracts. Definitely, you said education, but have policies that are out there and available to people. Make sure that those are out there. And then if they're not following them, then hopefully that liability will go to them. But I don't know that it's ever going to fall out.
Yeah.
Just because I do think we're such a creative group of people. And just like affiliate marketing has morphed over the years, I think it will continue to morph. I guess one positive thing that could come out of this is that a lot of the bad guys get run off. And those are the people that are probably driving non-converting traffic mostly anyways. So a lot of that can go away. Really get down to the people who know what they're doing and convert for you.
Might even be a cleanup, because I was actually on a podcast a couple of weeks ago and it was roughly about 40% of the traffic is estimated to be fraudulent anyway.
Oh yeah, with Rich, I watched that yesterday when I had some time. 21%, I think he said, of what comes through is fraud. And I will back him up on that. So when you look at what Anura does in the fraud aspect, we're doing technically we're doing a lot of the same things. We don't do what they do. We look at the content behind that, where he's looking at what's coming in. And I can tell you, we've talked about matching up some of our, I can show him where content I've had to take down and where that comes from and where his fraud is coming from. I believe it. We take down tens of thousands of awful content a year. Yeah.
So maybe, the light at the end of the tunnel at the end of this 30-minute podcast is the fact that regulation is coming. Winter is here. You need to start getting educated about what that is. You need to start making sure that your affiliates toe the line. You need to be educating the affiliates that you want to keep and establish long-term relationships with, because not all of them will have access to this information or even know that it exists. And it probably means all of us starting to become a little bit more responsible in terms of the ways that we drive campaigns, the ways that we run our segmentation within our program might have to change. There's a lot of knock-on effects that are going to happen here, but the main thing is making you all aware that it is happening and getting you to become curious about it, because it is going to become a formal part of your job and your job spec. So, Gayla, we've got no answers for you, but we've got the problems, and we can present these to you and get you to think about it. But we will touch base with you again, because I know you're doing a lot of lobbying in DC and you're hearing a lot of information, and hopefully you can feed that into our community and help us educate the masses as well. But it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast and to explore all of these things. We will put links to all of the latest guidelines as well. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to go read exactly what's been released and why it's impactful and why we actually jumped into this podcast this week and went off schedule, is to basically educate everybody and to make sure that they're aware of what's happening around them and the knock-on effect that this is going to have. So it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast this week. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you again soon. Do you hear that? That's the sound of your affiliate program skyrocketing. Intrigued? Then you need to know about Affiverse magazine. This isn't just another industry publication. It's your personal affiliate marketing powerhouse. Imagine having a mentor, a strategist, a productivity coach, all rolled into one sleek square package that sits right on your desk, helping you to grow your affiliate program every single quarter. Affiverse magazine is the quarterly toolkit you've been dreaming of. It's packed with cutting-edge insights, expert interviews, and a full promotional calendar brimming with ideas to keep you ahead of the curve. But here's where it gets really exciting. We've included guided planning sheets and goal-setting tools that turn your big ideas into actionable steps. It's like having an accountability partner that never sleeps. Whether you're mapping out your next big campaign or planning your affiliate conference schedule, the Affiverse magazine keeps you on track and fired up. And the best part? This game-changing resource is available to you to download digitally or order in print. But wait, there's more. Join our exclusive club and you'll get the premium print edition delivered to your door every single quarter. Plus, you'll unlock a treasure trove of perks, including live strategy sessions with industry titans and VIP access to our in-person events. Don't let another quarter slip by without this secret weapon in your arsenal. Head to affiversemedia.com, click on the magazine button at the top of the homepage, and order your print copy of the Affiverse magazine today. Your desk, your affiliates, and your business will thank you.